I call this July 15th meeting of the Paducah Planning and Zoning Commission to order and ask that you stand with us as we say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just in time. Thank you. Mr. Summer, call the roll, please.
Mr. Benberry?
Here.
Mr. Bradford?
Here.
Mr. Morrison?
Here.
Ms. Shramke?
Here.
Mr. Shadle? Mr. Wade?
Here.
Chair Casilius?
Here. Mr. Wade, you have the minutes motion?
I move that the reading of the minutes for June 24th, 2019 be waived and the minutes of said meeting as prepared by the secretary be approved as written.
Second.
Second by Benberry, did you second that? No, Mr. Morrison, I'm sorry, I wasn't looking. Are there any corrections, comments? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Benberry?
Aye.
Mr. Bradford?
Aye.
Mr. Morrison?
Aye.
Ms. Shramke?
Aye.
Chair Casilius?
Aye. We, as yet, I understand, do not have the information for our continuing case, so we're actually going to move right along to our first new item of business. Ms. Shramke, I believe you have that.
This one.
Yes, please.
I move that this commission receive and file the application of Sea Oil Company for the proposed re-subdivision of property located at 309, 313, and 317 Murray Avenue and 1600, 1602, and 1616 Irvin Cobb Drive. I further move that the requested waiver of the public hearing and the dedication of streets be given and approval of the submitted plat be granted.
Second.
Second by Bradford.
The Planning Commission saw the first consolidation back in January for this piece of property. They've since bought the property to the north of the alley and are wishing to form a waiver for the entire piece of property, and Mr. Tosh can answer any further questions you may have.
I think they've about run out of property that they can buy.
Oh, no, there's never enough property to buy. Are there any questions? No questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Ms. Shramke?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Benberry?
Aye.
Mr. Bradford?
Aye.
Mr. Morrison?
Aye.
Chair Casilius?
Aye. Mr. Morrison, you have our second item of business.
Yes, ma'am. I move that this commission receive and file the application of Mark and Jessica Torin, Sean and Renee McDermott, and James and Melinda Bowens for the proposed re-subdivision of property located at 4766 and 4800 Buckner Lane and 4781 and 4815 Exall Lane. I further move that the requested waiver of the public hearing and the dedication of streets be given and approval of the submitted plat be granted.
Second.
Second by Wade.
This is another area that the Planning Commission has taken a look at. Back in November of last year, Planning Commission sent a positive recommendation to the City Commission to close the road, which they did. This is simply to clean up the right-of-way lines and the old property lines and put the driveways on the appropriate lots with the houses. And Mr. Martin can answer any further questions that y'all may have.
Planning Commission asked me when we brought this through the first time for recommendation if we were going to clean up the property lines, and that's, if you recall, that's what we've done. The road closure, of course, closed the road. The road automatically goes half right-of-way to the adjoining property owner, but that still left some encroachments and driveways and so forth. So the property owners are intent on swapping some property. They're just exchanging property. So that's why it's a little bit more complicated. We're not only abolishing the rights of way or the right-of-way of that unnamed road, but we're also adjusting the property lines then as well. So.
Let's see if we understand properly what you're doing with
They
this.
probably understand the intent, you know. It's kind of complicated. We tried to color it up, look like an Easter egg, but I'm not sure we confused or helped.
Primarily where the dotted lines are really going to be the property lines
That's
now. As far as everything to either side of those lines will be conveyed to those particular plats as opposed to splitting the road straight down the
That's
middle.
exactly correct. That's exactly correct. We've created each of those little parcels. They're become lots, so we can describe legal description. The attorney then will convey, for instance, parcel 1, which is currently owned by McDermott, will be conveyed to the Torrens. So, and it's on like that down the line. And I'll be happy to answer any question or go through it in more detail if you like.
It will definitely clean up some.
Yeah, they've not known they had a problem there.
It looks a lot easier than I know it is.
Of course.
Well, good,
This looks easy?
good. No one knew they had a problem until the Torrens built their house, and they noticed that patio was across the right-of-way of the road. And that was,
So the McDermotts didn't know that their driveway,
no, sir, had no idea. The Bowens suspected something was wrong, but they never admitted it. They said they thought that something looked a little funny when they bought the property, but they weren't sure. So I'm not sure how it made it this far without somebody picking up on it. But
Now, Lot 2R, Lot 2 over here, it is it being retained by Mark and Jessica Torren, or?
it's already owned by Mark
Okay,
and
that's
Jessica
what I
Ford,
wondered.
but it is in 2 separate tracks.
That's what I
So they'll
thought.
have a lot they could sell off of Exall.
Right.
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 And we've eliminated all of the encroachments onto side yards and all that good
Right.
stuff. So.
Any other questions or comments?
with, for instance, Lot 2, or what's going to become Lot 2R, the requirements for that subdivision would still bear over, if someone did buy that lot and want to construct on it, their front setback and side setbacks are still as they are in the original.
Right.
I guess they are as the current zoning is.
Those would carry forward
Right.
to, okay.
Right.
We're not altering those in any way.
Yeah.
So basically, that lot has 129.3 feet of frontage,
Road
is that
frontage,
correct?
that's correct.
Mhm. And then it tapers back to 96.9.
Yes, that's correct. Mhm.
depending upon where they built the property,
Right.
the house, or whatever, and whether it was.
And you actually see they've got a clean out that goes up to the Torrance house, so they'll have to make some kind of provision for relocating that, maybe putting it over to, closer to the property line if someone buys that and builds on it, so. But that's a private service line at this point, so.
Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Morrison,
Aye.
Ms. Shramky,
Aye.
Mr. Wade,
Aye.
Mr. Benberry,
Aye.
Mr. Bradford,
Aye.
Chair proceeds.
Aye. That concludes our actual items of business tonight. However, we do have a presentation. We're very glad to have you with us tonight.
Let me get set up here. All right, well, good evening, Commissioners. I think I know everyone, but my name is Michelle Smolin, and I'm the Assistant City Manager with the city. So Tamara Tracy, the Planning Director, asked me to come here tonight to talk a little bit about some things we've been working on internally. It's officially called the Munis Project. That's the software we're working on. There's a lot of things going on behind the scenes, so people don't know about it yet, but it does have a lot of impact to the community, and it impacts our codes and permitting processes eventually. So I'm going to give you just kind of a high-level overview of where we are. So the first thing, we don't have our banner up today, but I want to talk a lot about how we're pushing our organization towards being mission-driven and values-based. So our mission is to be the best city in the world. It's something we're striving for, and we really feel like if we live our organizational values, we're taking steps towards that mission. So it's something we're really pushing and we're bringing into our everyday operations, but it plays into the next piece. So this is actually a preview. I'll be coming back to talk about our strategic plan. We will be launching it next week. It's the Board of Commissioners. It's their strategic plan, and we're getting ready to launch a website and a video and a bunch of promotional materials around what it is and how people can get involved. So this is kind of a sneak peek for what you're going to see next week, and Tamara has asked me to come back to this planning commission, so I'll be back to talk about it. But this directly relates to our open, smart, and engaged government section, and specifically action item 02, which is to create and sustain a customer-centered culture aligned with our organizational values. So I'll tie this all in the future. So if you were to come and sit down at the City of Paducah about 2 years ago, no matter what you were doing, this is the screen you would see. We were still on this type of software. It had not been upgraded in 20 years. So 5 or 6 years ago, actually, we had an internal team that decided we really need to upgrade and move into the 21st century. So they started the process of looking whether we wanted to upgrade this system or see what other software vendors are out there. Now, we're not fully implemented, so we do still have about half of our functions are on this system. So what we landed on is a Tyler Technologies product called Munis, and so that's why it's the Munis project. And this is a look at our project vision and the project goals. There's a lot going on there. It's a significant project, and I'll get into a little bit more about what it is. But one thing I really want to talk about is it's called an integrated software solution or an enterprise resource planning product. And basically what it means is it tears down silos between our departments. So everyone can share data and look at what's going on in the system. So it has a lot of benefits. The other thing that we are really taking advantage of is this is a great opportunity to look at how we do business and maybe some business processes that we haven't looked at in a while. So as we're implementing these different modules, we're able to deconstruct how we do it, why we do it, how do we want it to work, and how can we build the software around that. So this is how it relates to that action item. We have had, it's a huge cross-departmental effort. We've had a lot of groups get together and really talk about how can we build this so that it's more customer-centric? How can we improve our processes? We've mapped out our processes and figure out where we can make it more lean, or maybe we need another step so that maybe it's something that was missing in the process and is causing problems down the road. So it's a pretty significant effort, but we're taking it seriously and really using it as an opportunity to dig into our business process. So this is a little look at our project scope. Where we are, we have implemented the financials, which is basically expenditures, budget, general ledger, and that's really the backbone. We had to do that first before we could move on to anything else. We've also implemented occupational licenses, accounts receivable, and general billing. So that was what came next. Where we are now, we're currently implementing credit card payments. We're looking at having a self-service module so that you can actually log in and get maybe your occupational license. We're still working through that, but definitely we'll be able to pay your property taxes online and hopefully get a permit online. We're also looking to implement property taxes. That's underway now. We're working on electronic plan review, which would impact this group. And Tyler 311 is a service request module for non-emergencies. So we always use the pothole example. We don't know if that's how we're going to use it, but it could be for code enforcement cases. Brush pickup, that's something that's huge here, that you could just pull up your app and say, I need my brush picked up, and it would go into a work order system. What we have coming up is codes and permitting. Human resources and payroll, which that's very internal, and then work orders and fleet and facilities management. So one thing that's neat is eventually that Tyler 311 product will tie into the work orders, so it'll be like the Domino's pizza cooker, where you can see where it is in process and align with everybody else's. That's our goal. So you can see it's a very robust project, multi-year. It's a pretty significant lift for our organization. So I wanted to talk about our permitting task force. We, about a year and a half ago, did start the codes and permitting implementation, and we brought Tyler Technologies representatives in to look at our business processes. And really what we found is that it was going to accomplish a lot of the things we wanted, but there were other things that we needed to do outside of the software, breaking down silos. We talked about that a lot, but how we flow information through different departments, who receives the application, how can we improve our inspections process. We needed to have those discussions that software doesn't always solve. So we paused it, we took a step back, and we created this permitting task force. Another thing we did was we needed a different type of position than we've had before, and this position is a business systems analyst. We hired Emma Shaw last fall, and she's been a wonderful addition to our team, and she really helps us figure out how to use the software to its full capability. So we needed to pause that too, because we needed to bring a little bit more skill in, and we reclassified actually one of our positions in my department to do that. So this was their vision and goals. It was a cross-departmental team led by our customer experience and city clerk director, Lindsay Parrish. Emma Shaw was on it, and then Fire Chief Kyle was on it. And so they have some longer term goals, but some of their initial outcomes are things that you have seen us working on recently. So the New Day initiative with the customer experience department, that was one of the things that they found from this permitting task force. They're also starting Kickstart meetings where you can come in and talk to the city about what you want to do, and we'll have representatives from all departments to help kind of serve as a liaison through your permitting process. They're also coming up with easy-to-use user guides that will walk you through the process. So Emma Shaw has a great skill of process mapping, and so she's been able to help, map out our processes so that they're more easy to understand. And finally, I don't know if you've seen, but we started certificate of occupancy celebrations. We did one with Smudge, and then I think it was another gym that opened up. So when you get through the process, just trying to celebrate how we got there. So these are a few things. There's more to come, and we are in the future are hoping to implement the codes and permitting software very soon, so you can get your permits online, and we can work with code enforcement online and all of those things. So that's coming up, but we did take an intentional pause. So I wanted to give you a sneak peek of what's coming up as far as the self-service, our non-emergency service request, and electronic plan review, which is probably very interesting to this group. So this is a sneak peek. I know it's a little hard to see, and this isn't actually our setup. This is what the self-service module will look like when you log on to pay your bill. And you can see on the right-hand side, too, I guess you probably can't see. There's a bunch of options, but there is a permitting option. There's an occupational. This is a property tax example, so there's a lot of options. It's just up to us on how we set it up and decide to execute it. This is the app. It's called Click to Report, and I think they may have upgraded since I took this screenshot. And none of this is our work, so ours will look a little bit different. But this is an example of the app that you would have on your phone where you could say, you know, here's an abandoned vehicle, and it actually sends the location into our system, or here's brush that I need picked up. So this is what it would look like on your phone. We will also have an online portal. So this is an example of where you could type in your address. This is a community that had set up a bunch of different options that you could pick from. So you can actually submit that online without having to call in or visit the city. And one thing that's neat too, this is an example of the public portal where you'll actually be able to log in and see what other people are submitting. And you can dig a bit deeper and see, you know, where are the potholes that have been submitted, or where are we doing brush pickup. So we're hoping to have a fairly open system where you can see what's going on and what we're working on and what's going on in the community. And it will improve our internal operations because it has some neat dashboarding and analysis features that we haven't been able to look at before because we don't get a comprehensive look. So there's a lot of potential there. So this is electronic plan review. We've decided to implement Bluebeam. And where we are with that is we have purchased the software, but we're negotiating terms and conditions for training. But the hope is that people can actually submit plans through this software, and then we can share them with the department so everybody is working on it simultaneously, and we're not passing things between departments. So it will hopefully expedite the process, and everyone is aware when we have received some type of plans. So this is in the very early stages. We're hoping to get this launched within the next year. We're still trying to figure out exactly how it looks here, but it could impact, you know, we'll have to bring in all the commissions and those types of things that look at the plan reviews and figure out how we want to use it. Is there anything you want to add to that, Josh? I think there's a lot of unknowns right now.
There's a lot of unknowns.
You're all getting a sneak peek on kind of the cutting edge of where we're headed. So that, you know, I always like to end with this nice quote from Mayor Harless, which is kind of what we're looking to do with all these different features about just changing how you engage with us. So you can submit things differently. You can access City Hall 24/7, or where we've kind of talked about maybe marketing it as a virtual employee. You don't have to wait for us to be open. You can, you know, submit it at your convenience. So we're really trying to do things differently and get into the new century. Yeah, what kind of questions do you have?
Yes, will this then eventually be a paperless system also?
That's the goal.
Mm-hmm.
That's the goal.
Okay.
Yeah. Now that's pretty controversial because we have lots of people on staff that like paper. I don't know if we'll ever get some staff away from paper, but it will be a very
I do too.
yes.
But still, you know, I mean,
Yes.
it would be great to have everything sent to us, the most updated
Sure.
copy of a plat or whatever, you know, if you have something to submit at the last minute that you've just gotten signed or whatever, then you have more time to, you know, you can get it to us without having to worry about it being delayed to another meeting because there wasn't enough time to get, you know, whatever done. So
Sure.
it's good.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities like that we need to think through and work through.
On a test situation at one of the dealerships with paperless.
Oh.
And we eventually will be going to all of them with paperless, but the
Wow.
girls love it.
Do they?
And they don't like to file. They like having the scanner right there. And
Yes.
it's been very successful so far.
That's
So,
great. It's a lot of work, though. You know,
We started with the smaller dealership, so
Sure.
we'll see.
Yeah, what's really neat too is we have scanners on their desk, and the way it does come with a document management system, so they can scan things, and we can have barcodes or different tags where it'll automatically file it where you want it to go, so you don't even have to go, you know, move it into wherever you want it to
Retrieving
be.
it is-
That's
Fairly easy.
exactly.
So would there be a citizen app, something where every citizen can input? Is that what I'm saying?
Yes.
I was just in
Yep.
Baltimore, and they do that, and well, you don't want to know how it's used, but literally, you know about the shooting last night where it took place. So
Wow.
in that city, you want to know that.
Yeah, sure.
Here, we wouldn't need that, but there's a lot of other, pick up our brush, or there's a stray dog, or,
Absolutely.
and then I'm thinking, I know you're still in the process of building, but,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of people that touches, depending on whatever the citizen sends in.
Exactly. Mhm.
So if I send in something, try to do this without sounding too critical, but I've called after hours
Yeah.
about a stray dog
Uh-huh.
that looked hurt, and I
Oh.
was basically told until it bit someone,
Oh,
it's not our problem.
Yeah.
I won't say who said that, but, you know, so when you're building something like this, will it get to the right people and at the right time.
Well, that's the goal, right?
That's a goal. That is one of the beauty of this, is that sometimes when you're calling or trying to contact City Hall, you don't necessarily know who it needs to go to.
Right.
So this will be set up so you can just do the animal issue and it'll go exactly who it needs to go to. Now, in your issue, I've heard things like that before, and that's something that we're working
Yeah,
through
no.
as a city. Hopefully we can work through those issues better, but.
Yeah, it's a negative.
Yeah.
It's the only example that came to mind.
Yeah, that's okay.
Unfortunately, it's a negative.
Yeah.
I have so many positives.
No, that's okay.
Well, it's important.
All that feedback is good.
I was going to ask if the 311 system, you'll get reports of people who'll say, oh, my street light's out. Well,
But
that's really not the city.
that's not your
That's Paducah
problem.
Power.
Sure.
So hopefully there's
That's what I was
referral
getting
organization, of abilities to send it to the correct utility or a quasi-governmental. And it sounds like there is going to be.
Well, what we've talked about so far is there are options too, where if we would have a street light, like you could select a street light, a pop-up box would say, that's responsibility of Paducah Power, please call this number.
See, that'd be right.
I don't know if we can let them in our system, but we could set it up where we would forward it on to them.
I'll just use that as an
you know?
example. It could
It's a
still
great
be something
example.
that, hey,
Well,
yeah.
that's a JSA manhole, or
Exactly.
that's a city culvert, and it is us.
Exactly, yeah.
In the same way you were talking about brush pickup, we had an example of that. We had a huge pile of brush that my husband and I cut off of some trees, and there were 4 other neighbors on our same street who had piles of brush. We were the only ones who called in, and so they just came and picked up our
Oh, they
brush.
did.
They didn't pick up anybody else's.
Yeah.
And so it would be nice. Well, no, it'd be nice if you, because ours was huge. They didn't want to leave ours out
It
there.
filled up the truck.
Yes. So it would be nice if you could add other people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I have this on the
Because if they're
street.
coming, they might as well,
Yeah.
make it worth their while to come to your street.
Absolutely.
I think it's going to be great.
I think
Of course, there are some people who would put in theirs and then get on the phone and call their neighbor and say, how come you haven't called the city
That's
and told
right.
me you need your brush picked up?
That's right.
Anyway.
There have been some challenges that have come along with the moving towards the Collins system. You're absolutely right. These are all things we hear, so.
Of course.
Trying to work
what's
on
the
those.
time frame like on the app launch?
Yeah, we were just talking about it today, so this is neat. We are this close to having some really successful cases built out in the system. We have to do a lot of testing with email, because it'll be great. You'll get an email notification with a number. This is your work order. And we're going to run it by the Citizens Academy. We run a Citizens Academy, so we're going to invite them to come in and test it and give us some feedback for what types of services they
Debate
can
it,
is.
yeah.
It's real good.
Yeah. So once we get there, then I think we'll pick that go live date. But I'm hopeful before the end of the year. But that's just me.
As I recall, Munis was a 5-year project, and you all are about halfway.
Yep. We're about halfway. You're right. It's about halfway through. We have paused it due to some staff turnover and reevaluating. But yep, we're about halfway through, and we have probably 3 or 4 more years now to go. And there's some realities that come along with it. It always looks good on a project plan, and then you get into it and we think, whoo, we want to slow down and make sure we do it right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So these are all, we're kind of at that point right now where we're halfway through, and so we're reevaluating what does the rest of this project plan look like. Yeah.
So is there a program director for this?
It's me. That is worth mentioning. My position was created. I was a newly created position about 3 years ago to be the project manager over this. So it's my baby. But I will say we have an incredible team that does a lot of work, because they're doing their regular jobs and implementing this on the side. So I'm not really, I'm lucky this is my job. We have a lot of really talented people that are doing their normal job and this. So it's going to be great when it's implemented.
It's a very exciting project.
Thank you.
I think Josh volunteered to go paperless.
All volunteer.
Looking over there,
Well, considering all the
scanning all that would,
all the file cabinets sitting out over here, they probably would want to go paperless.
It's unbelievable how much.
Oh, no, it's believable.
Oh,
Trust.
For sure.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for having me, and
Thank
thanks
you
for your
Thank you.
service.
We appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you again.
I will be back. We have strategic plan books for you, and I'll give you a whole rundown of what's in there.
Fabulous.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're
Sounds like
welcome.
homework.
No, just reading. If there is no other business to come before the commission tonight, we stand adjourned.
thank you.